so that we can share it out, later, and you guys can share it with your colleagues as well. It gives us the opportunity to send it out onto YouTube, and so everyone can enjoy what we presented today. So with that, again, thank you for joining us today. We'll be going over building student agency through digital skills. My name is Bradford Stein. I'm the VP of Business Development for BSD Education, and you'll be hearing today from Allison Renda, our lead trainer and coach at BSD. So really quickly, the agenda for today is we'll first go over a brief introduction of BSD Education. We'll then go into primarily what we do is we help teachers and educators teach digital skills. So we'll talk a little bit about what we mean by digital skills and how to increase student agency within digital skills, and then get into how to encourage their student voice and choice, and a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. All right, so first, our introduction to BSD. BSD stands for Build Something Different, and we design, develop, and deliver programs of learning for digital skills, enabling teachers to bring real-world technology education to every classroom. And how we do that is we provide 3 essential resources. So first of all, our curriculum is fully resourced. We have 600 plus hours of curriculum that we can offer. We are Digital Promise certified, which puts us kind of at the forefront of EdTech efficacy. Our curriculum is fully resourced with scope and sequences aligned to ISTE and CSTA standards, hour-by-hour lesson plans, so that you can basically take it off the shelf and send it out to your students as soon as you're ready. I'm going to let one more person in. The second resource we provide is BSD Online. That's our online teaching and learning platform. I'd like to emphasize the fact that it is a teaching platform as well. Of course, this is education. It's about the students. That doesn't mean it's not about you, the teacher. So our platform has a number of features and tools that help you get through the content, learn as you go, and make sure that you're never caught without the answers. The last thing that we supply is advanced training and support. We like to call it unrivaled instructional support. So there's a number of ways the platform does this, but also when you work with us, you're going to get support from someone like Allison, who's going to take you through professional development, which will give you not just platform orientation, but also get you introductory coding skills and get you up to speed so that you can teach digital skills to your students. There's no experience required for technology education to work with BSD and start teaching your students. Well, we don't stop there. We also supply ongoing coaching so that you have a community that you can come back to as you get into the classroom, learn a little bit about what your students are going to need, and you can get customized and tailored recommendations on how to work through any issues that come up in the classroom as you're teaching digital skills. So in that way, we make real impact. I'm going to talk a little bit more about our curriculum. We do talk about digital skills and coding. We teach HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and those 3 languages build up most of what you see on the internet, the apps and the social media and all the websites that you see. So it's not just about the coding, it's about building the disciplines on top of the coding that represent those hot jobs that are available in Silicon Valley and everywhere there's a tech hub. So website development, web and video game design, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and e-commerce are some of the topics that we cover. So with that, I will pass it on to Allison, who is going to lead you guys through our discussion today.
Great, thank you very much. So like Bradford said, my name is Allison Renda. I'm the technology coach and trainer. Actually, I should probably change that NA to more of a global helper, so to speak, trainer or coach. I provide professional development such as this, and I was a formal digital literacy teacher for about a decade, and I have a master's degree in business education. Okay, so let's dive into the meat of this webinar. So I want to start off by just talking about what are digital skills, because if you walk into a room with 10 people and you ask them what are digital skills, you're going to walk away with 10 new definitions. So, which is typical, you're right. There's so many ways that we can describe digital skills. So I would just want to start off by giving a definition and talking about digital skills in our perspective, meaning BSD. And the reason why I'm doing that is I just want to be able to give you an example. By no means what I'm saying these are the only digital skills or the most important digital skills. I just mean that I just want to be able to give you an example so you have something to kind of go back and work with at your own school or in your own classroom. Okay, so here's a little hierarchy of how BSD looks at digital skills, how we kind of map out those skills. So first we start with those soft skills, communication, collaboration, okay? Then we build up into those hard skills. And in our situation at BSD, that would be programming, coding, okay? And then we work up to those creative skills. And each skill has to work in tandem. It can't be an independent lesson. They all have to work together. And at BSD, the projects are all scaffold. So we're able to dabble in each of those areas and then continue that process onto the next project. Let's take a little deeper dive into creative skills so you can get a little bit better perspective on what I mean. So creative skills, again, these are the skills that we at BSD are using. Again, not necessarily maybe your 1 and 2 choices. Maybe you are doing makerspace. So the students are going to need some different skills for that perspective. So computational thinking and design thinking. Students are, let me start with this. Students are creating websites and video games, e-commerce websites, like Bradford had mentioned in the beginning. And all of these things are found on the web, okay? Just like Bradford had mentioned. But we want to focus on those computational thinking because it's solving problems using computers. Again, a #1 priority for us at BSD. And then we have to look at the design thinking process and making sure that whatever we're showing to people or what the students are demonstrating, they're learning, that they are showing or taking consideration usability, accessibility, the whole design process. So for us at BSD, these are our creative skills that we focus on. So a little bit more about these creative skills. So we have computational thinking is convergent, and we have design thinking as divergent. Okay, so let's break it down. So over here, I have divergent and I have create choices. So here is where you're going to make that list of possible solutions, maybe a prototype. Okay, that is your divergent. You're creating those choices. Then, or divergent rather. So then when I come over to convergent, now I'm actually taking that list, making a choice, solving the problem, and building that artifact. And we use both of these to solve our problems or create projects that we put out for the students. So they have to go through both of these processes before delivering or demonstrating their learning, which is done in a digital artifact. As the students get older or progress in grades, then we might go into a little bit more detail on this. But right in the beginning, we just kind of let them kind of figure it out and guide them along the way. All right, so that's creative skills. So now if you remember that hierarchy, we're working our way down actually. So we're in the middle section right now and we're on hard skills. So again, you will come up with your own list of hard skills, but for the purpose of BSD, we teach HTML and CSS, and we just kind of group those together to keep that as more of a website base, okay? The other is JavaScript, which is that action, maybe a video game. And then just recently we've added Python, which is just to kind of show the students the back end. So for us at BSD, these are our hard skills. Again, falling right under that hierarchy of creative. So now in your classroom or in your school, maybe coding is the top priority. So maybe these would be your hard skills. But again, if you're doing makerspace, then your skills are going to be different. For example, they're going to need 3D printing. So you're going to add different skills. So again, just an example to kind of get you started with your own classroom or your own school. And then our soft skills, we actually go by this acronym called CARE, which I think is just perfect because it means something in itself. And then when broken down, it means something completely different, right? But yet it all ties together nicely. So the soft skills that we focus on is the CARE acronym. So we want the students to be curious. We want them to be adaptable. We want them to be resilient. And we want them to have empathy. And we really strive to make all of our projects and lessons fall into that umbrella. You might also, a lot of times schools use the 4 C's for their soft skills. We just use this CARE acronym. And the CARE acronym has actually grown and developed within our company, that now we actually give out an award to teachers that have displayed one of these skills in their classroom. So the a student can nominate the teacher, a fellow teacher can nominate them, they can nominate themselves if they want. And we've actually, I can ask Bradford, could you just share out the CARE link? So that way, if anybody wants to get more information about that, and there's actually a whole nother webinar that's dedicated to just CARE. So if you want to get more information on how we use CARE as our soft skills, the biggest thing for us is that we care about the students, we care about the teachers, and we want them to care too. So it's just something that we kind of go by. All right, so let's talk about, remember I said there's oodles and oodles of skills, and of course it depends on what you're doing and which skill is either going to be targeted or needed. So here I have some hard skills listed and some soft skills. Again, I'm basing this around BSD, but just to give you an example. So say you were doing actually, I'm going to skip down to video game design. Say the students were doing some video game designing. I would look at these soft skills and see which ones am I going to tackle? Which ones am I going to hit? Okay, if it's a group project, maybe there's some communication and collaboration going on. There's definitely critical thinking. Maybe the video game is centered around some type of problem. And then of course, they're going to have to do the planning, they have to do time management, and then we're back to that teamwork. So depending on what your hard skill is, may change what your soft skills will be needed. Okay, so you always want to make sure that you take in consideration, like, what is the hard skill? And then what soft skills do I need to go along with that? And it's not just a one and done, right? It's not just video game design is time management. I didn't set that up to display that. I just meant for you to be able to see the list on each side. Oh, one thing, I'm going to actually go back to this for 1 second. So your step in this would be to make that list. So just like we have our soft skills and I showed you what BSD's hard skills are, this would be another thing that your next step would be to make these 2 lists for your school or for your classroom. All right, so I want to look back at this hierarchy because, again, I want to stress the fact that it cannot be taught in isolation. It really needs the whole package, that whole umbrella. And note that it's a continual skill development, right? So picture a student learns how to create a website. Okay, so I know what soft skills have to go with that. I know the hard skills, and then I'm going to let them go and be creative. But the next lesson that we're going to do is now a multi-page website. So we're going to start that whole skill rotation all over again, but they're going to use what they've already established from the previous project and continue to build on those soft skills, hard skills, and creative skills. So it's just continually going. It's like a circle or a cycle that's just nonstop. And this allows us to keep track or keep using all of those skills, right? Because we don't want to just think of a social studies lesson. You know, you open up your textbook, you learn about World War I, you close the book, you move on. You open up World War II, you read about that, close the book, you move on, right? There's no crossover, there's no skills being developed in between. So we want projects that are going to hit every level. The next thing that you would want to do is create a digital skills progression. And again, this is just an example. This is what BSD looks like. So like I said, we teach beginner level HTML and CSS, but we do offer some block-based coding, which is through Scratch. So if you want your students to start at the very basic, we do have that. And then they would grow into HTML and CSS, get a little bit into JavaScript, intermediate HTML and CSS, intermediate JavaScript, but then you'll notice business development, artificial intelligence, marketing, entrepreneurship. So these are like those main topics that we want them to learn about. But while they're learning about business development, they're also going to be learning about JavaScript and advanced HTML and CSS. Or when they get to entrepreneurship, they're going to take everything that they've learned and utilize that in that course. So again, just an example, but this is a great way for you to just outline from beginner to advanced. You could even label this by grade level. If you really want to say, instead of beginner, I'm going to say this is like 4th grade. And this is 5th grade, however you want to be able to sketch it out for your own school. So there's many different ways that you could look at a skills progression. And that would also too, actually, I'm going to go back. Like a lot of schools are into robotics, and I'm going to tap back into that makerspace. So again, you could use those hard skills and soft hard skills in your course progression, whether it's robotics or whatever the case may be. Okay, so I know that was a lot of talk about digital skills, and the webinar is about agency, but how can we use those digital skills to build student agency or increase student agency? So that's why I really wanted to lay down that foundation of creating that digital skills process before we just started jumping into agency, because this is about using digital skills to increase agency. So let's just start off with a very basic educational version of what is agency. So through learning activities that are meaningful and relevant to learners, driven by their interests, and often self-initiated with appropriate guidance from teachers, so that students can slowly take ownership. And what I like about this definition is where it says appropriate guidance from teachers, because right, we just want them, we want to guide them in the learning process. We want them to be self-aware and critical thinkers. So by guiding them and then slowly taking yourself out of the picture, we'll start to get more agency for that student, or give them more agency. All right, so increasing agency. So we've got like this, again, kind of like this progression, right? Let's look at this as a non-digital right now. Let's say that we are cooking and we're gonna bake a cake. So the not mine is you reading that recipe, right? It's not your recipe, it's somebody else's recipe. So you're reading it. Then you're practicing, you're learning how to make this cake. Then it becomes partially yours, because now you're like, this cake would taste a lot better if I put chocolate chips in it. So now it's kind of yours. You just kind of remixed it up a little bit, right? Then you have full ownership when you make the recipe yourself, right? You create your own recipe, you create your own additions. So that makes it yours. Okay. So here's that increasing line. So we've got responsibility, we've got ownership, skill, ability, and then they have that confidence to take it to that next level, which is making their own recipe and essentially becoming their own chef, right? So let's look at it more digitally now. Okay, so first students are going to learn about HTML and CSS, and they'll practice that. They're going to learn about JavaScript, and they're going to practice that. So we're here, right? We're practicing. Okay, and then the partially mine is maybe they take an existing project and they just remix it. They just change a few things and kind of play around and tinker. And then we drop them in, not literally drop them, but we put them in their own coding blank page. And now they get to do anything that they want. And this cycle is another one that continues. Because remember, if we learn a new topic, we have to start back at the beginning, right? It's not mine. I have to learn about it. Then I got to practice it. Then I got to change it up and then I can make it mine. So this is another one that just continually evolves for each and every skill or lesson or subjects. All right, so we're going to take this a little bit farther. So kind of the same idea here. So we're going to learn by doing. So the lessons simulate work done in the professional world. So we're going to learn how to do this. Then we're going to do some real coding. We're going to use the text-based coding that all professionals use, HTML, CSS, and Java. Okay. The most important thing in this equation is those transferable skills. Okay, because we want them to be able to take that creative, those hard, and those soft skills that you have established and make those transferable across the board. Okay, so if your soft skills are going to be communication and collaboration, then that should be across the board, meaning across every classroom in your building. So that way everyone is speaking the same language and using the same terminology and just kind of all on the same page. And that way those skills will make it easier to be transferable. And then all of that put together gives us student agency and gives the student, especially at BSD, we give the student the opportunity to build a digital portfolio. That way they can demonstrate their learning. Now, 20 years ago, I had to create a portfolio for teaching. Well, computers weren't that hot, 20 years ago. So everything was printed. So I literally had a portfolio that I brought to interviews with me that was yay thick, I don't know, like 4 or 5 inches thick. And then of course there was no digital printing. If I took pictures in class, like back in the day, you had to take the roll to CVS and have it developed. So there was a lot of time and effort that I had to put in to this portfolio to be able to get a teaching job. And now it's so much easier for the students to build that portfolio with all of the transferable skills and then the opportunities for coding and learning. It's just very much, it's simpler process to be able to demonstrate that learning. And like I said, at BSD, we can do that through their digital portfolio. Okay, so again, here's our scaffold approach. So again, I'm sure you've heard of the term gradual release. It's definitely a big ELA term, English term. But this is that we want them, again, looking at BSD, we want them to learn in a very structured way. Like, here's your video guided lessons. It's going to speak exactly to what you need to do, why you're doing it, etc. Right? So that's us gaining that information. Then we go into the guided projects. Okay, now the guided projects is more text-based. So there's not as many videos now. Now they have to kind of take a little bit more ownership into their learning. Now that they've gained some knowledge, they're going to go into a sandbox template. So this is that remix. Okay, that's the time that I'm going to throw the chocolate chips in the cake. So here they can take a template and they can just tinker around and change a few things to make it theirs. But then that last step is the sandbox where we put them in a blank coding environment, and they can create anything that they want. So of course we don't want to start with that, right? Because they don't know anything about coding at this point, but that's that gradual release. So we're very structured and focused. Then we let them take a little bit more ownership. Then we let them get more creative, but not too much, just give them a little bit, and then we just release them. Okay, so how do you assess and support and at the same time support agency? So a traditional multiple choice only allows for one correct answer. And at BSD, we believe that there's many ways to solve problems, right? And we know that unless we're talking about a specific math fact, right? There might be different ways to solve that math problem, but you're all going to come out with the same answer, right? So in this situation, we want all different perspectives. And again, I'm not saying that this is a one and done. Everyone should use this BSD rubric. This is, again, just an example. And if I look at the visual design is that creative part of that hierarchy, okay? And then I'm looking at content, which is the hard skills. And then the overall effort is those soft skills. So you can see how those skills fall into the rubric and how I'm then taking this rubric to have a conversation with the student. I'm not using this rubric as a grade. I don't think if a student does a website for me, I'm not going to say, oh, you know what, Bradford, I'm going to give you a B on that. And Mark, I'm going to give you an A on it. No, like it's this rubric is meant to celebrate what they've learned and provide feedback where needed. So it just generates that conversation. And this can measure your the student's agency. Okay, so, what hard skills have they used? What soft skills have they used? And what creative final project, okay? And of course, the rubric is very flexible. So if you have 3 different areas that you want to focus on, I feel that sometimes I did create new rubrics for certain projects just because I wanted the wording, or I wanted them to focus on maybe the writing piece more rather than the visual design piece. So again, whatever fits your classroom and coincides with your hard, soft skills and creative. Again, not for grading, just for collaboration, okay, feedback. All right, so student voice and choice. So we want to give opportunities to students to be able to share what they've learned in any way that they want, okay, within the means, right? So for example, here are a list of different ways that you can offer choice and voice to a student. Now, of course, I wouldn't give this whole list to the students. I definitely would maybe give them 2 or 3 that they can choose from. But in this is broken down into 4 different categories. So this isn't just digital related. Okay, so there's written projects, there's presentations. Then we do have that small technology section and then the media section as well. So again, let this pick 2 or 3 for the students. I've seen teachers use bingo boards and tic-tac-toe boards where the students can then choose from the ones that the teacher has selected. Another thing to pay attention to is if you are trying to meet a standard, then pay attention to which choices you're giving them. So for example, say you're trying to reach a writing standard. okay, an ELA. You wouldn't allow them to do maybe a puppet show, okay, or a dance. All right. So you want to make sure that your choices that you're giving them meet whatever standards you need to meet as well. Okay. And I'm actually going to give you one example. My son he was in 10th grade, going to be a junior this year. And in his history class, I can't remember now the exact topic, but the teacher gave them choice and voice, and my son decided to create a rap. And he's not a singer, he's a drummer actually, but he wrote a rap based on the information that he learned in class. He was given bonus points because he actually performed it in front of the class, which was hysterical. But everybody was excited about it. They were interested in it. They were laughing and pointing out different things that he said in the rap. So it really just, it gave him that full agency. He felt like this was completely mine. And a huge smile on his face, by the way. Okay, so Bradford, do you remember the dreadful book reports in school?
Of course I do. Yes.
Oh, oh, dreadful. Like, you'd be lucky if you got just this, my book report, and you had to fill in, the main characters and the subject and blah, 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 or you had to make a diagram or something, right? But wouldn't it be kind of cool if the student had a choice to make an ebook? So the students could actually code a book report, but make it an ebook. So just taking that traditional project and turning it into something that really excites them. I mean, if you have a student, even a video game, say they're like really into video games, well, you could have them easily do a book report using a video game. I've done that using Minecraft, where the students have described the book and the characters by recreating it in Minecraft. So play on the students' interests. That will definitely help with the choice and voice. Okay, so which kind of leads me perfectly into tips. So the first three I'm going to stress kind of go together. Okay, so let students share their strengths. Don't get in the way, and I mean that in the nicest way. And you don't have to be the expert. Okay, so those three kind of go together because you want to talk to the students, find out what their strengths are, what are their interests, what are their likes, their dislikes. Okay. And then when they start that process, don't get in their way. Don't say, oh, you know what? I don't know how to code, so I can't have you do a website. No, this is that perfect teachable moment where you can show them how to be resilient and how to research and how to overcome the things that you may not be the expert in. So you not being the expert is a perfect way for them to learn a whole new lesson on how to gather up information. Now, you might have this last one, encourage them to learn new skills in whichever area they choose. You might have that student where every time you give them choice and voice, they make a video game. And you're like, no more, right? You need to show me some new skills. So instead of forcing them to do something completely different, encourage them to add something new to the skills that they already know. So maybe in the past they were making a 2D game. Well, maybe now you tell them to make a 3D game. Or maybe you ask them to create additional levels. So whatever the case may be. So if you have a student that's continually repeating the same type of projects, then just ask that student, okay, let's evolve and let's grow some of these skills into something new. Okay, I just want to wrap it all up by coming back to this because I really kind of feel like this led the whole conversation because it just tied into each area. So we have, again, those creative skills, those hard skills, how to program, how to do something. That's how I kind of look at that one. And then the soft skills your communication and your collaboration. And remember that this is continual. This is always going to be in a cycle, so to speak. And we take what we learn and we go on to the next. And this right here, continual skill development, is what's really going to help real agency grow in the student by continually having that skill development. And that is all for my portion. I'm going to pass it back to Bradford to talk about some really cool free projects.
Thanks, Allison. And yeah, before I get into the free projects, I just want to add on to the points that you've made. Of course, we know working with technology is going to be incredibly important for this generation of student in their careers. But even more important than the ability to work with technology is having that agency, taking ownership of their learning, because as the world changes, they're going to constantly need to adapt to new technology skills as they go. Learning that early on is going to be really, really beneficial to them as they work through their way through life. And then just one thing I wanted to mention about one of the ways that we think about agency in BSD is the ability to share their creative projects, right? I think the ultimate way to solidify agency and the learning experience is to be able to go home to mom and dad and show them what they built. So within BSD, it's really easy for students to essentially within a click, publish their work, publish their artifact. They can pull it up on their phone, they can pull it up on any screen, and they can run home to mom and dad and show that moment of delight, which really is going to, again, solidify that learning. Of course, if they make a game, they can share it with their friends too. Yeah. So a couple of things about free projects or free stuff that we have from BSD. I'm going to pop a link into the chat for BSD Start. That is our entry level offering. It's free. It will always be free. It gives you the full BSD experience, the guided projects, gets you used to our curriculum and the content, the fully resourced nature of it, and it starts getting you tied into our community as well for that instructional support. So with BSD Start, you get 30 students free, 4 hours of incredibly useful and beneficial projects, again, that are going to help you and the students along the way. Of course, other tiers are BSD Teach, which is a single teacher plan. You get more students and more content. And then lastly, our full partnership model, BSD Build, where you get access to the 600 plus hours and access to a coach, our certified PD, and a custom pathway for your school or your institution as well. So before we get into questions, these showcase a little bit of the projects that are available. With BSD Start, students get to express themselves with the people who inspired them. They can make a trivia game maker, and also really cool getting them into some of the cutting edge and emerging technologies, experience with building an AI webcam image classifier. It's a lot of fun. So it's not just for the students, you guys can check it out as well.
That one, I'm going to jump in there, Bradford. That one is a lot of fun. I've had a blast playing with that one.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You get to train the webcam using whatever's behind you or whatever objects you have in front of you. So feedback, please give us feedback and put that link in the chat as well. We're always looking to improve our offerings in webinars, and as well as if you check out BSD Start, we're happy to have feedback on that as well. We want to make sure you guys have the tools you need to teach digital skills and prepare these students for their futures. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. If you have questions, go ahead and pop it into the chat, and we'll toss it to Allison to answer. All right, so Allison, one question coming in. Of course, we hope that students want to have agency and they want to take ownership of their learning. What if they don't? How do you get around that challenge?
Actually, the best way to tackle is to really know the student. know what they're interested in, ask them a few questions, and you'd be surprised what you'll come out with. They may not think that they could demonstrate their learning in the way that is most interesting to them, or most valuable to them. So having that one-on-one conversation with them will unlock some of the things about them, their likes, their interests, and then you could feed upon that and kind of steer them in the right way. Like when I was doing Minecraft with the students, the fourth grader, we did the Iroquois village, and the fourth grade teacher was like, how did you get, how did you get them all? I'm like, because that's their interest. That's what they like. So that as soon as I told them that they were going to do Minecraft with Iroquois, they went nuts. But when they were in her room and she said, we're going to learn about the Iroquois, she didn't get a hoopah, so, and that's because of the interest level. So if you just know your student and know what they like, what their interests are, that's going to help guide the conversation.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? I'll leave it open for just another second or two. See if anyone has any others. I know we're just on our time. So looks like that might be it for today. Again, everyone, thank you for joining us. Allison, thank you for walking us through how to create student agency and voice and choice, and the role that digital skills has in producing that effect. You guys will all get an email with the recording. Please share this out with your colleagues and tell them about BSD. You can always go to our website or even our YouTube channel to see the backlog of the webinars that we've done. And please be on the lookout for more. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.